what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. With me is Chris Fry. We are with the Foot Candle Film Society and the annual Foot Candle Film Festival, held right here in beautiful Western North Carolina this coming September. But before September, still got a little ways before September, so we got a lot of movies and things and reviews and things to do and talk about and catch up on over the next several months, starting today. Chris, how you doing?
Doing good. Looking forward to talking about the second Steven Soderbergh film of 2025. I don't believe he has. I know he's been working on other films, but
It is only March.
Right. I think this is it for 2025, but you never know. He could slip one in like September or something.
It's true. We reviewed the film Presence, just like it felt like last week, but I know it was a little further back than that. It was maybe a month or two ago. But this film also came out from Steven Soderbergh, director. It is the film Black Bag. That is the film we're going to be reviewing here in just a moment, starring Cate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender. Then we're going to share with you, I got one piece of exciting, fun movie news, something a little uplifting, something a little story of hope, Chris, that we're going to be discussing in our news section here later in the episode. I also have a couple trailers to show.
Okay.
Two trailers, films I'm interested in. One trailer I have seen, one trailer I have not seen. So we will be watching both of them together and discussing the two films that those trailers represent and our thoughts and hopes about them.
You're not submitting me to having to see the Mission Impossible trailer again.
Did a new one come out?
I don't think so.
Oh,
no,
okay.
But,
You got me excited
as
there,
a
Chris.
joke, you're not just going to make me watch another one. No. I mean, it may be another one with Tom Cruise still running. I mean,
He's still running.
There's enough running probably in the movie that they could make like 6 or 7 different cuts of the trailer.
Yeah, we're going to watch the all running cut of the new trailer.
Nice.
Which is really no different than the other trailer. No Mission Impossible trailers today. Actually, neither of these are action blockbuster big movies. They're both kind of smaller movies, which will be fun to look at the trailers for them. And then Chris has also got a recommendation for us at the end of the episode, a film that he recently caught up with that he wants to recommend that we also consider checking out. Okay, Chris, but first off, let's get into our review. It is the latest film, as you said, the second of this year from director Steven Soderbergh. It is the film Black Bag.
Where are you off to?
Black Bag.
To be with someone in this business. You each know what you know and you never discuss certain things. I would do anything for you.
Would you?
Yes.
You got a breach.
One of our people stole something.
You cannot imagine the damage. Find the leak.
Give me 2 weeks.
Thousands of innocent people will die.
Okay? 1 week. Who's the suspect?
Your wife.
When intelligence agent Catherine Woodhouse is suspected of betraying the nation, her husband, also a legendary agent, faces the ultimate test of whether to be loyal to his marriage or his country. The couple we're talking about here is Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett. As a husband-wife team, they're both secret agents. And the whole phrase, which I was not really familiar with, they say like when they can't talk about their work because it's like, oh, it's in the black bag. So whatever's in the black bag is like a mystery to the other part. So they both know they work for said agency, but they just can't talk about what they do at work.
Right.
So it's in the black bag. This film, like we already mentioned, was the second of 2025. The first was kind of Soderbergh going into like a niche genre of like a ghost story or horror film, I guess you could say, even though there wasn't really horror. This film is being billed as a spy film, a drama, a dramatic film, a romance, and then a thriller. 4 different tags it's labeled with in IMDb. Alan, I want to get your thoughts on what you thought of Black Bag, but I also want to know your impression of your introduction to Gustav Skarsgård, yet another Skarsgård.
Oh my gosh. We have another Skarsgård.
So Stellan's the dad. Then we have Alex, we have Walter, and we have Bill Skarsgård. Now we have Gustav Skarsgård. So, yeah, no, actually, you may not even know which. I saw his name. I was like, wait, who was he in the film?
No, he was Meacham. He was the one that early on
he's
met.
like what they call is like a handler. So Fassbender is the spy, and then he has somebody who like gives him the mission and tells him kind of like what he needs to go do. So that's Philip Meacham, and in the film he's played by a Skarsgård brother.
Very nice. That's awesome.
So yes, that was just
he was great.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, he's continuing the Skarsgård name
That's right.
in high fashion.
He's doing a good job.
Black Bag. I really liked this film.
Okay.
Wasn't perfect. There are some things I wish it had stuck a couple more beats. I can go into detail. But overall, no, I thought this was really, really good. I don't want this to be seen as diminutive of the film. It's a bit slight in that, I mean, I don't want to say a lot happens, but it's a very understated film.
Sure.
And I liked it because of that. I like the fact that, yes, it is a spy movie, but save for one scene, there's no guns fired. There's no chasing. There's no running. There's no
one thing of something blowing up.
Yeah. Like it really is like quick little moments. And other than that, it is a very understated, I'm not going to say a simple movie because it's actually pretty complex once you get into the plotting of it. The plotting is extremely complex.
Sure.
But at the core of this film, it is a very simple movie. Once you get past all the machinations, all the spy agency stuff and all the intrigue and, the double crossing and the who's against who type of thing. Once you weed all that out, it's a pretty simple story. Husband and wife are kind of, like you said, they're working together. You've got Fassbender and you've got Blanchett, and I think both of them are fun. I think they're both fun roles to watch. I mean, they're very different, which is also very interesting to see them kind of play off each other. And I just had a really fun time watching this film. Is it the best spy movie ever made? No. Is it the best, intrigue thriller? It doesn't go as far as like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith trying to play up this whole angle of like two people who are spies. It doesn't fall into those cliches.
Sure.
It plays it in a much more straight and a much more simple. It's like, no, they work together. They can't really talk about what each other does, but there's some. Then they get thrown into a situation where, yes, and this happens in the first scene of the movie, where there's a question about, is one of them actually betraying the organization or the country?
Right.
And so the other one is now thrust into a situation where they've got to make some moves and decisions on how to handle that. There are two dinner scenes that I think are just, both of them, amazing. Like,
yes.
I will watch those scenes over and over again. They're just great. Well written, well paced, so good and enjoyable to watch. I actually would have been fine if the whole movie basically consisted of those dinner scenes as a way of advancing the plot. I think they could have pulled it off if they wanted to. Anyway, I had a good time with this film. Not perfect, but a really, really good time at the movies. Chris, I want to hear your thoughts though. Agree, disagree, or what's your thoughts?
No, I think we're both on the same page with the film. I like the film. I will say something that if I did have like a slight thing that kept me from just loving it, and I guess I should have just let it wash over. And as the film did continue to go on, I did let it wash over me. There's a lot of, and granted, the agency, this is in the UK. Mm-hmm. So had it been in the US, maybe I would be a little bit more familiar, but I'd kind of doubt it, with a lot of the jargon they were throwing around. And granted, they're agents and they are all working in the agency, so they're going to use terms that they understand. But at first it was a little kind of like, wait, what are they talking about? What's going on here? And granted, in a spy movie, that's kind of a tack that some can take, is they just kind of throw a lot at you and you're just kind of like, huh? But if you just, you get kind of the feeling like, I don't need to worry about exactly what they're talking about. I just need to know who the characters are, which they let you know. Mm-hmm. One of the scene you're talking about, the two scenes you're talking about, were also my favorite parts of the film. There's a dinner scene where they basically set up, okay, here are these people, here's how they know each other. They all work in the same place, at this agency, and here's who they are, and here's like why he's trying to find out what they know, when they knew it, and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, okay, now the fine details of some of that like went right over my head. I'm like, I don't get what that's talking about. There's a virus or like a code or something.
Sure.
Severus is what they call
Severus,
it,
yeah.
which all I could think of was like Severus Snape from Harry Potter. So I thought that was kind of a funny name to give it. But anyways, that's like the thing that he's trying to get, who has it, what's going on with that. So you're like, okay. So once I was able to let that go, I enjoyed the film a lot more.
Yeah.
And I will say too, something that occurred to me when we had that second dinner table scene is that in a way, this is kind of like a Miss Marple mystery from Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
So less a spy movie
Yeah.
than an Agatha Christie mystery, because you're like, okay, this has happened, and you sit all the people down, and you have this dinner table where you like introduce all the characters, and at the end, it's like the detective pulls people back in. He's like, okay, now, did Miss Clark do it with the candlestick or Miss White? It's like, and they go around the table.
Yeah.
And so both times it had, and more recently, it's kind of like a Knives Out film, except Knives Out film, they're usually contained into one location. And this, they're like hopping all around the globe, and there are tons of different locations. But same type idea where introduce the characters, and at the end of the film, it's like sitting everybody down and, going around the table and seeing who's the guilty person.
Right.
And yeah, it just, that setup, instead of being frustrating, I guess because I wasn't expecting it, that dinner table scene that kind of ends the film, it was so ridiculously satisfying. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Because you don't expect a spy film, like a James Bond film, to be settled around a dinner table. Like, and not that this is a James Bond film, but you have Pierce Brosnan
I know
making a
what you're saying.
cameo. And
Yeah.
So it's so different that I found it, like you said, really refreshing. I really had a good time. It's an hour and 33 minutes. Get
tell
in,
you,
get out.
Chris, here's where I was at this point in the movie. The movie opens with like a really nice one take tracking shot, which is really cool from behind Fassbender's perspective, his character, George. Mm-hmm. And it ends with a discussion with the Skarsgård character.
Right.
And it basically sets up the film. Like, it's like, okay, here's the deal. Here's the situation. 5 people. One of them is a traitor. We don't know which one it is. You need to find out.
Go.
Got it. And I'm like, I love it. I'm like, give me the stakes. Give me the setup. Like, I'm ready to go. And so, that's in George's mind the whole time. It's like, I have to figure this out. And I don't want to believe.
He doesn't have 2 weeks.
I got a week. And I don't want to believe it's my wife.
Right.
But I'm also a pragmatic guy. I got to explore it and make sure I'm on target with this. So I love that setup. And then the fact that it ends at the dinner scene, like you discussed, so satisfying. I'm like, yep, this is the way it ought to end. There's no cop out. There was no, it actually wasn't somebody of those 5. It was something. I'm like, I kept expecting a curveball that was just going to kind of break it down. I'm like, no, I don't want that. I want it to be a satisfying, like, yes, it is somebody at this table. Show me who it is. And like, got it. Okay, good. And they explained it. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I totally get it. And it ended the way it needed to end, and you're done. And when that happened, the fear in the bottom of my stomach was, oh my gosh, there's probably still another half hour of this movie where they're going to spin off into something else. I'm like, yes, there's probably going to be something else. And no, a couple minutes later, the movie's done, credits rolling. I'm like, yes. I'm like, that is the way to craft a really nice, smart movie. So yeah. It's very happy with that. What'd you think of Fassbender and Blanchett?
So, so with Presence, the movie we talked about previously, Lucy Liu was in it, but other than that, there weren't a lot of stars we were familiar with.
Yeah.
This film, right off the bat, Fassbender, Blanchett, you're like, okay, these stars are going to be made to look, you just typically, when you think of specifically Soderbergh using stars, George Clooney, Jennifer Lopez, and Out of Sight, or not George Clooney, George Clooney, Out of Sight, Mm-hmm. Okay, but then also George Clooney in the Ocean's movies with Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts. Okay, so going in, I thought that's how Fassbender and Blanchett would be used in this film, just because, I just expect it. And in the trailer, you don't get much of a sense. I mean, you believe that's kind of what you're
expecting a lot of witty banter and just kind of an aloofness to it. And just
also
like cool,
them looking amazing.
Yeah.
Now, they still, of course,
they
are Blanchett and Fassbender look amazing. But it's interesting where the glasses that Fassbender's George Woodhouse is saddled with wearing, it's like And I think maybe it's kind of a winking joke. Often in movies, they have like the really beautiful girl or the really handsome guy, and they wear glasses and they're like the dork. And then at some point they remove the glass and you're like, oh, isn't this person beautiful or handsome?
Right.
And like he wears these glasses and it's just like, that's a choice. That has to be a choice. And he wears them for the entire movie. And it's like, yeah, they're dumb looking, but I can see how that character who's very practical, not very flashy.
Plus he's kind of and I think everybody else in the agency knows it. He's kind of a jerk. I mean, he's kind of he's a little off socially. He's a little, he's not the debonair spy guy that you would expect. He's a pretty pragmatic. He's very much.
I don't think anybody would ever accuse him of being nice.
No. Even at the dinner scene, the very first dinner scene is like immediately, like within a few minutes, they're just like, oh, here goes George again. George is doing his thing and George is going to make people feel bad and like kind of point out flaws. And, that's just him. And it's like, he's not debonair. He's not flashy.
No.
And I liked that. I like the fact that it was different. And I like the dynamic between he and his wife, played by Blanchett, where she is, at least on the surface, very kind of big and extravagant and just all this. And it's like they make a great dynamic between the two of them for that. So anyway, I liked both their performances. I thought they were both having fun.
No, definitely.
Michael Fassbender's playing like the most, what's the character he played in one of your favorite movies of all time, Prometheus? David. It's like a spy version of David. If I could see somebody knocking this film or knocking Fassbender's performance, I could say, basically he's just being David in his, and a little different.
I could see that criticism, but I disagree. And I think it was actually perfect to see, somebody who's, if he had just been David and been handsome, that would have been one thing. Yeah. But the fact that they make him not likable and he's not handsome and he's like got the Dave thing, it really worked for me. And especially with what you're saying, the contrast between him and Blanchett, who is this, flashy spy.
Always very well dressed and just always
extremely well dressed.
And just seems to be aloof, although you do learn that she's not. She's actually very good and serious at what she's doing too. But she seems to be playing more aloof where George is like known around the circles as he's kind of the uptight guy that's like, by the books and, he's ruthless. I mean, in a social way, he's ruthless. So I really love their two characters. Then you have some great supporting cast. I mean, Tom Burke plays Freddie Smalls, one of their fellow agents and one of the dinner scene participants.
Yeah, he's great.
Marissa Bella plays Clarissa, another participant. Regé Jean Page playing James Stokes, who I thought, I'm trying to recall where I've seen him. I know he was an actor in that show Bridgerton, which I never saw, but I know that's where he kind of got his mark. I think he was in the Dungeons and Dragons movie that Chris Pine was in.
Okay.
But that's all I remember. Do you remember anything else he was in?
No. He was kind of a familiar face, but I didn't know what from.
But I thought he was really good.
But he was, yes, intern ran in here. He was in the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. So yes.
And then Naomi Harris also as Dr. Vaughn. All four of them were just good and fun. And I really especially liked Tom Burke as Freddie Smalls. I thought he was a really interesting character, and you learned so much about all four of them, but definitely him in that first dinner scene, and it was really well done.
I agree. I will say he was good, but if I had to pick a favorite of the non-Fassbender, non-Blanchett one, I'd probably have to go with Marissa Bella, because she has a lie detector scene with Fassbender.
That's good.
And the way he puts other people under with a lie detector, but the way her scene goes with him is amazing. Yeah. And I should say, because we haven't mentioned it thus far, this is not a comedy, but there are moments of humor in it. And sometimes the way Fassbender just is like stone-faced and acts kind of David-esque, like a robot, and just like...
Are you referring to Michael Fassbender's character George using the phrase, is it clenching your anal sphincter?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. Got it.
And just how that was played, and just,
to be able to say that pretty much with a straight face and in all seriousness was fun. So
so it was. I did have a great time. I loved how it ended. I think I really liked you were okay with Presence. I mean, I
Yeah,
really
I was
liked
okay
it.
with it. You liked it more than I did, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think if I were, if I had to pick one Soderbergh of the year, it would probably be this one, just because I don't know. I was just so over the moon about it.
Well, and of course, you mentioned in the setup, or mentioned early on describing Fassbender's character, you mentioned the Ocean's films,
Yeah.
which obviously, Steven Soderbergh did all three of those, Ocean's 11, 12, 13.
Right.
And, that was a little bit of a fear of mine going into this, is like, I just didn't want this to be an Ocean's 11, but with maybe slightly older characters. And it's like, and there happened to be husband and wife, and that's the whole twist. And it wasn't, which I was really thankful for. It definitely had style. People definitely looked good. There was, people were dressed really well.
Sure.
But that's about where the similarities with the Ocean's movie ended. I mean, it was different types of characters. I felt like more real characters, not just the eclectic group of actors put together for both comedy and intrigue purposes. I don't know. It was different, and it was good, and it held my attention. I thought it was really good.
You had a fear going in of it being like Ocean's movies. I hadn't thought about it. That could possibly be a pitfall. For me, what I was relieved was I was afraid it was going to kind of be a Bourne film or a Mission Impossible film, but with a married couple. So
Right.
kind of like the Mr. and Mrs.
Mr. and
Smith
Mrs. Smith, yeah.
And right off the bat, when it wasn't, that just, reassured me. And I came away really liking it. And I think I could see how with audiences possibly, if they are anticipating because of the trailer,
Oh, sure.
a lot faster. I mean, this is very dialogue heavy. If you're anticipating an action movie with a lot of, things blowing up and people being shot and a lot of I could see how you could be disappointed.
Well, yeah, if you go in with that expectation, I think people do need to understand, it is a talking movie.
Yeah.
It is a talking spy movie. I don't think anybody runs one moment in this film.
I don't think there is.
And again, save one scene. There's no gunplay or no action sequences whatsoever. It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of intrigue. It's a lot of suspicion. It's a lot of there's some good tension. I think there's some moments that are actually tense and built up tension. I think again the second dinner scene really works well from that angle. So yeah, it all builds to some good, satisfying things. But it is not everybody's bag, but it is. It worked for me. I thought it was. I thought it was really good. It sounds like you felt the same way as well. So
Agreed.
well, I'm just always happy to see Michael Fassbender in a good movie. So he's an actor I want to see more of. What was the last film we saw him in?
The last film I think I saw him in was probably Next Goal Wins. It was the
Yeah.
Taika Waititi soccer movie. I don't know that
Has he done anything?
we did. He did maybe slightly before Next Goal Wins or slightly after The Killer, which we reviewed.
Oh yeah. I think that was after. I think that was before.
Okay.
I think he did The Killer, and I think he did Next Goal Wins.
Okay.
Um,
Oh,
Yeah.
and actually, he was in. I don't believe you saw it, but it was just from this past year. Kneecap.
No, I
Which
did
he
not
was a
see him.
supporting
He was a supporting
role in
role
that.
there, but
Right.
I had been meaning to see him in that. So, yeah, bring it back on, Fassbender, man. I'm ready for some more stuff for you to be in. And always good, Kate Blanchett.
Oh yeah.
She's rebounded from her Borderlands movie, I think, nicely. So,
Well, and interesting. If I had so last thing I'll say too, which didn't bother me. If we're saying Fassbender was maybe using some of his experience of playing David, in a way, I could say his wife was taking a little bit of Tar and doing kind of the
Yeah.
embrace.
There's a little bit of
because
that.
she's so self-confident in this film that sometimes she can come off as being kind of abrasive, but that kind of fits with the way her husband George beheld, because you can see how they're this odd couple, but they work together because they're so idiosyncratic. Other people may get irritated with them, but they kind of love each other because of their idiosyncrasies,
Yeah,
I guess.
right.
So at first I was like, because of how she would speak to people, I was like, oh, she's kind of got this Tar thing going on, but it didn't bother me because it was kind of an interesting dynamic within the film.
no, I think actually the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm actually. I mean, I came in very positive on the film. I'm coming out even a little more positive now. The more I think about it, now I really did enjoy this. So, and I love a good spy movie. It's why I want James Bond to be successful again. It's why I just love this spy genre. Just give that to me. And this is actually more in line of what I want than even where James Bond has been the last 20 years. So
So you're saying instead of have Tarantino do a Bond film, you just want Soderbergh to do a Bond film?
I think Soderbergh could.
I think so.
I mean, actually, there's a part of me at the first half of this movie, I'm thinking to myself, could Fassbender have been James Bond at some point?
And I know they usually want somebody
They want somebody a little younger.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of past the point where they would
But
consider
he could
him.
totally play. Yeah.
He would totally do it. And I think after seeing this, it's like, yeah, this is a little more subdued than a James Bond character ought to be. But this showed me that, yeah, this could work. This could work.
Agreed.
All right. Well, that is Black Bag, Steven Soderbergh's second film of 2025. We're both coming out pretty positive on it, having had a good time with the film. It is playing in theaters. Well, this was the second weekend in which we called it. It might be around a little bit more. I think it's doing okay for being a smaller film that really, its budget is pretty much honed in on these two lead actors and the locations, I'm sure. And that's about it. But it seems to be doing okay. I mean, considering it's a more adult theme film, and I think the promotion on it's been really light. I haven't seen a lot about it. So
and that was kind of, as the credits were rolling and my wife and I were getting up and walking out, I was like, and it was, I think maybe 2 or 3 other people in the theater, and that was it. And I was kind of thinking, it's a shame because now granted, I have seen previews in the theater for it, but I don't feel like the marketing is what it could have been for this.
Yeah.
And I think that's disappointing because I think a lot more people would probably respond to it. Where I actually can see the promotion for Presence was, more minimal because I think it's more of an experimental film and people won't get bored with it. But this just seems like more of a general fair film that people might respond to if they
I think it could have. So a little surprising on that end. So, all right. That is Black Bag. We're giving a good, strong recommendation from both of us on this film. It is playing in theaters now, but I also don't doubt it will be available online probably within a few months, easily for people to see. Okay, Chris, how about let's take a quick break. When we come back, I've got news, trailers, and you've got a recommendation to share. So we got a lot more to do here on Foot Candle Films. We'll be right back. Okay. All right. Let me hit the news item first really quick.
Okay.
All right. Ready?
Yes.
Starting back in 3, 2. Welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. So we had our review of the film Black Bag in the first half of the show. Let's talk about some news and some upcoming films that could be interesting, could be some ones we were going to check out. I'll go and give a fair warning. So I got excited this week. They did release what I thought was going to be a trailer for the new Paul Thomas Anderson film. And I've already forgotten the name of it again. Something battle something. Chris, I just mentioned it to you 10 minutes ago, and I've already forgot the name of the film.
Well, in your defense, like you mentioned, they have changed it a couple of times because it was like the name of the character, one like Bagham Cross or something. Like
one battle after another.
One battle. So they've changed it a couple of times, but this might be the official title.
That is the title.
Okay.
So they released. It turns out it was a teaser for the trailer, which is there. Okay, there's a distinction, Chris. There's a teaser trailer, which is a relatively short trailer, typically about a minute or long. So still gives you a trailer of the film, but it's meant to be more teasing the film than it is to give you a full trailer. But then there's a teaser for the trailer, which is different. That's where they do like a 20-second like snapshots of the trailer to tease you that the trailer is coming in like a week or two. Okay. I do not like these. These are annoying because I got excited. I'm like, oh, there's a teaser trailer out for this film. Good. I watch it. It's 20 seconds long. It is just a flurry of shots that are going to be in the trailer that is going to come out next week. Gotcha. Full trailer. So we will talk about that trailer after it comes out this week, which hopefully we can discuss next week. Okay.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. For all the people who are already firing up their emails saying, why aren't you guys going to talk about this trailer? Like the trailer hasn't come out yet by the time of this recording. It will have by the time we record next week. So we will.
And I think as a general, I mean, if we have any rules, which we don't really, we try to avoid teasers because a lot of times they end up being we unfortunately did that for Presents. We thought we were watching a trailer and it was just like the dates the movie was coming out and like some haunting music and the actors' names, and that was it. So in general, we try to go for the more substantive trailers. Well, sometimes we end up doing teasers. But
so I'll tell you, the difference for me is I will actually rather watch a trailer, the first trailer that comes out for a film. Because generally it's not the full, like, going to explain every plot detail. It's a lot more setting tone and letting you know what the movie is going to look like and feel like. The trailer that comes out like 2 or 3 months before the movie, like 2 months before the movie, that is very long, like 2.5 minutes with every plot point in the film discussed. Okay, that's the ones I don't want to watch because that's the ones I do think ruin it. So anyway,
fair enough.
There's a whole business behind the trailers for sure. But before we get to those 2 trailers, I do want to share with you. I do have a really quick piece of news.
Okay.
And again, I told you it was going to be a happy story, or at least give us some inspiration about the nature of the film business these days. You and I discussed last year a story about the film Coyote versus Acme.
Yes.
Which was a Warner Brothers film that got completed. Supposedly it's pretty good.
John
Cena's in it. And I think...
is Will Forte?
Will Forte was in it. Yes. And it is one of those where it's like live action plus blended animation, the Warner Brothers characters.
Gotcha.
And it got shelved after completion because Warner Brothers was going to use it as a write-off for tax incentives.
Like they did with Batgirl.
My understanding is Coyote versus Acme might have even been a little bit closer to, like, a little bit more done than even Batgirl was. And they still X'd it and said, nope, we're going to write it off. We save money or we make more money. We feel like if we do it this way, then to actually release the movie. So a lot of people were upset about this, especially the actors involved in the film. It's like, hey, we made a good movie. This movie's fun. And you're basically, writing it off and taking all of our work and throwing it down the toilet for tax purposes. Well, the good news is it's been a year now, or over a year, since Warner Brothers shelved that film. And it now has a new home. It is getting purchased by somebody for release. So Ketchup Entertainment, which is kind of funny in itself. I mean, I don't know anything about this production studio, but our distributor.
I know one thing about them.
Okay.
And they have released a film, The Day the Earth Blew Up.
Yep.
And it's Daffy Duck and Porky Pig.
Another Looney Tunes movie.
Yeah, it's a Looney Tunes movie, and I've actually heard decent things about it.
Yeah.
And I might try to coerce Alan into watching it for next week's review.
Okay, well that could be a good follow up from this story.
It has been playing in the theater. I don't know if it'll still be there, but
the good news is Ketchup Entertainment, that distributor, independent distributor, is expected to land the distribution rights for Coyote versus Acme.
Nice.
Price tag's around $50 million. So Warner Brothers will get some money off of the whole deal. And they can feel good about having made some money from selling this property off.
Right.
But Ketchup Entertainment, the intention would be is that when they buy it, yes, they are going to release it in theaters and let people see it. So, it's exciting. It's good to hear. I hate the idea of any movie getting made and not getting a chance to be seen. I mean, that to me is it's heartbreaking. I mean, I know there's finances and there's business things behind it all, but still, like, you have an entire group of people putting together their work to make a film, and then nobody gets to see it.
Well, and to me, I mean, I'm not in on all the finances and the decisions that are made and everything, but it just seems like every movie stands to be somebody's favorite movie. Now, every movie also stands to be the movie somebody hates the most, and can't stand. Mm-hmm. But it just seems like, think of like the whole rationale behind cult classics and everything like that, that movies, I mean, like The Room, for instance, people like that, the longevity of that movie, it still makes tours and people go see it. And, it just seems really strange that they would spend all that energy and then never release it. Like you get that far and then don't, because release it to a streaming service and make something off
There's
it.
There's got to be something to do it.
But so I'm glad that it's going to finally see the light of day.
Yeah. I mean, and there's no date or anything on it. I mean, they're still finalizing the deal. So it's not 100% inked in stone yet, but
sure.
All indications, Variety's reporting that, it's pretty much going to go down this path, and that's good. That means we'll finally get to see the movie. I'm sure you and I will definitely be reviewing it whenever it comes out, and we can
I think
see
so,
if it was a worthwhile. We can decide. Did Warner Brothers make the right call on this, shelving it, or did Ketchup make the right move by buying it and releasing it? We'll see. So
There you go.
all right.
Well, I'm gonna challenge your short piece of news with an even shorter piece of news.
Okay, go for it.
So I think over the last week, Bong Joon-ho was a host of a Q&A for John Carpenter's. They did a screening of The Thing.
Okay.
And he was, did the Q&A. Typically they do have the director come in, but then they hire somebody else to come in and like do a Q&A that's obviously a fan of the person's work. Well, in this case, it was Bong Joon-ho. So that's not the news item. The news item that was apparently during this Q&A, Bong Joon-ho got a verbal agreement from John Carpenter to score his next film.
Yeah.
Which supposedly I think was supposed to be a horror film.
Supposed to be a horror film.
So I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. So there's my
is.
short piece of like, oh, that's interesting.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Chris's little news tidbit there. No, I read that as well. Thought that was fun.
Yeah.
I assume Bong Joon-ho has complete discretion to be able to make on the stage deals like that for scoring his film. I mean, I assume so.
Yeah.
So-
Well, one would hope.
I would hope it's not something he did in the moment, and then later on he's just like, "Oh, wait a minute, what did I do?"
Oops. Yeah.
No, I think John Carpenter scores a lot of his own films.
Right.
I think he has scored a couple of films that were not his.
I think so, but I'm not entirely sure. But
So that's all great. It was fun. It seemed like a fun moment on stage. I think Bong Joon-ho was generally excited when he heard that John Carpenter
remember
agreed
when
to
he
it.
got his acceptance speech at the Oscar, he was just going on and on about Martin Scorsese, who's out in the
Yeah.
crowd. And he is such a fan of movies
he loves
that for him to
movies.
even do the Q&A with John Carpenter, I'm sure he was excited. But then he probably just couldn't help himself.
Yeah.
But be like, hey, will you score my next movie? And he's like, sure.
Yeah, sure. Whatever.
So yeah, just
I mean,
fun-
well, you're kind of putting me on the spot here,
so
dude.
I can't say
I don't really
no.
want to, but sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So just the fun of that, the fun of people still excited at what they do, and that just is awesome.
It's great. It's great. We got two good stories
Hey.
there. Make us feel good about film.
Yeah.
Great. Let's play a couple trailers, Chris.
Okay.
I've got two trailers for you. One of them for a film that I know nothing background about, but I have seen the trailer and I like the trailer and I'm anxious to hear your thoughts on it. And then the second one will be from a director who is doing a follow-up to a film that you were not a big fan of. I was a huge fan of, but there's a follow-up to their film, another A24 film. We'll get to that one in a minute. I have not seen the trailer for that second one, but let's get to the first one first.
Okay.
The film is The Luckiest Man in America. Are you familiar with this film at all, Chris?
I don't think so.
Okay. So it stars a Mr. Walton Goggins, who right now is, anybody who's watching The White Lotus knows him as character in there. And he was also in he's been in a lot of things.
And he was he was in that movie they made out of the video game that was not Half-Life, but
Well, it's a TV show they made off
yeah,
of
it was a
that.
TV show.
Fallout.
Fallout. There we go.
Yeah.
So he was in that. Yeah. Gotcha.
And this also has, it's Walter Goggins, also Haley Bennett. And then it stars, and I'm trying to remember his name. Why can I not remember his name? Paul Walter Hauser.
Oh, okay.
He's
Haven't
the
seen
lead.
him in a little bit, but
He
okay.
is the lead in this film. Now, I'm going to show you the trailer, but before we do, they are forcing me to watch an ad from GoDaddy that actually stars Walter Goggins in it, which is always really interesting synergy. I don't know if that was planned, but anyway, here we go. For the podcast, we're going to skip the commercial, but you are going to hear the trailer here next, and then we'll discuss the trailer on the other side. All right, here we go. The trailer for the, what did I already say it was?
The luckiest.
The Luckiest Man in America. Here we go.
From Television City in Hollywood, it's time to press your luck.
I just came off a 3-day trek from my hometown in Ohio. And I drive an ice cream truck. I love the show. I've probably seen it rips.
I like the guy. Stories like those are why America loves game shows.
So that was the trailer for The Luckiest Man in America. Again, starring Paul Walter Hauser and Walton Goggins. Chris, I didn't know anything about this film going into it. It was kind of a new one for me, but it does have a very quiz show type of vibe to it. Where,
Yes.
taking a true story.
Based on a true story.
Based on a true story of someone who kind of figures out how to win big in a particular game show and how the studio and the game developers are trying to deal with that. Kind of the same idea. Your thoughts on this film, just what you saw.
So there's a term, and I think I'm using it correctly, the Mandela effect, where you see something and then you think you've heard it before. It seems like, and it's like a fake history or whatever. As soon as the trailer started playing, and it's the game show Press Your Luck, which I used to watch all the time as a kid.
Okay.
Yes, and it had the whole whammies and everything. Something about this started to seem familiar, but I don't know if it's the Mandela effect where it's actually like, no, you're confusing it with other movies like Quiz Show that you've seen that was a really good movie with Ray Fiennes. But something about like a guy and like gaming the system. And then, I feel like I do know the story, but I'm not sure. But I am fascinated with stuff like this. I can't wait to see it. Paul Walter Hauser, I haven't seen him in a while. So him being that kind of character, it seems like the role was in a way kind of tailor-made for him. There are a lot of other David Strathern's in there. And like you said, Walter Goggins is in there. So it looks to be good. We talked a little bit about trailers. My only fear is that maybe they showed me a little bit too much. So I kind of feel like I know where the film's going to go.
Right.
But I'm still interested in seeing it just because in a way it's going to remind me of my childhood of watching endless reruns of Press Your Luck.
All right. Well, good. You got a little personal connection to the film there. The film is directed by Samir Oliveras, and not a name we're familiar with. He directed 2 previous films, Bad Lucky Goat and Cactus Blossom, 2 films over the last 8 years or 10 years. Yeah, again, neither film, small independent films he did. This is like his
the titles though.
Yeah. Bad Lucky Goat. Cactus Blossom. So anyway, he's at least to us a fairly new director. It'd be kind of fun to see what he brings to the table and makes of this film as well. And Paul Walter Hauser, I continue to be really impressed by him as an actor because it feels like he just kind of really absorbs himself into whatever role he's getting into. And I don't want to say he's unrecognizable because he is a recognizable character person to see as an actor.
Sure.
But yet it just feels like his roles are very diverse. I mean, doing what was the Clint Eastwood film that he did where he was the
security guard in Atlanta.
Yeah, right. I forget the name of the film,
but I know which one.
Very good there. I know he's been a few other parts as well.
He was in I, Tonya.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So very eclectic roles.
And he was in the Cruella film, the live action Cruella. Yep.
Yeah. So exciting to see him to lead this role and lead this film. And The Luckiest Man in America. Just for your records, it's clocking in at 1 hour, 30 minutes. Nice. So it's in a Chris Fry approved range duration.
It comes out in April?
April 4th. So here in just a couple of weeks.
Nice.
I don't expect it to make it to the theater here in Hickory, North Carolina. Okay. I'm saying I don't expect it to have a wide release. I think it'll be a limited release. So you may have to seek it out a little bit more to try to find it. But
gotcha.
Yeah, that is The Luckiest Man in America. All right. Now, the next film I wanted to show, Chris, let me pull it up here.
You were saying it is a sequel?
No, it's a follow-up.
A follow-up. Okay.
Follow-up for this director.
Okay.
The director, the film we're going to talk about is a film called Materialist. The director is Celine Song, who did Past Lives.
Right.
That you were not terribly impressed. You were lukewarm on. Yeah. I was a huge fan of. It was one of my top 5, I think, of the year that year. So I'm excited to see her follow up to that film because it got her a lot of acclaim. Did she get a director nomination for that?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either, but she was at least in contention if she didn't get a nomination for it. So this one, the production budget has been amped up just a little bit.
Okay.
This one stars Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, and Pedro Pascal.
And it's still an A24.
Still an A24 film. Yep. The film is called Materialist, and let's just watch the trailer. I have not seen it yet myself. I couldn't tell you anything about this film other than what I just told you reading out on the screen. Okay. So let's check it out and see what we think of Materialist.
Hey, are you single? I'm a matchmaker. Give me a call if you want to meet somebody.
I deserve someone who fulfills all of my criteria.
Nothing over 20 BMI.
I don't want someone who likes cats.
I'm trying to settle.
I promise you're going to marry the love of your life.
Some boys kiss me, some boys hug.
How many marriages are you responsible for now, Lucy?
9. If the girl asks, for a tall drink of water with a salary over 500 grand.
Always Mr. Right.
You deliver.
You're the matchmaker. You want a drink?
Sure. Coke and beer.
So that was the trailer for The Materialist. Just Materialist, not The Materialist, just Materialist, with Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, and Pedro Pascal, the voices you probably heard batting around in that trailer there. Interesting. Looks, I mean, on the trailer glance, granted, the trailer just shows us what it wants to show us. Looks to be more of a traditional romance, not a rom-com, but like it just has some comedy in it, but it didn't seem to be heavy on it. It just seemed a very traditional romance film, a love triangle. You got the pretty in pink syndrome of the wealthy, good-looking guy, and then Chris Evans playing the opposite of that, which doesn't quite fit either because it's Chris Evans and still a good-looking dude. But anyway, I don't know. Hasn't sold me, but it is Celine's song. I didn't really think the idea behind Past Lives would have grabbed me either before seeing it, and it did work for me. So I'm obviously going to give this film a chance, but the trailer didn't really inspire me to think great things. It is A24, which is another good mark in its column. So, of course, they also released Opus, which I was not the biggest fan of last week. So anyway, whatever. Chris, your thoughts on it?
It is interesting that this film comes from Celine Song because to me, it looks like Past Lives was art house version of this.
Yeah.
And this film is big budget, big stars, mass appeal version of the same story. Granted, I know it's not, but it's a girl choosing between two men, which Past Lives, it wasn't that she was really choosing as much as getting reacquainted with somebody that she felt a lot for at one point. But this film is, you have the Chris Evans character apparently knew at one time, doesn't know him now. Pedro Pascal character meets, likes, and then becomes reacquainted with Chris Evans. And it's like the whole Bridget Jones diary. That's what this looks like.
It does look very traditional in that sense. Yeah, and that is a little concerning to me. So
that said, I like Chris Evans a lot. I like Pedro Pascal a lot. It's hard for me not to see a movie that both of them are in because I like them both so much.
Well, you'd like to think that the two of them, well, and Dakota Johnson too, not going to sign on to the film because Dakota Johnson, I think, outside of the Madam Web and a couple like more rom-com-y things she's done and the whole
50 Shades.
50 Shades. She's done some interesting films outside of those. She's done some challenging films.
Gotcha.
So you'd like to think all three of them would not sign on to a project that was just a pretty traditional love triangle romance film.
Sure.
I'd like to think. I hope there's something more to it.
And I have to say, okay, so I criticize it, but if Celine Song, yes, I think she can. I think she's a capable director. She's got the chops. If she had made another film, just another relationship film, and it was just a straight out more drama like her first film was, I wouldn't be as intrigued. But I'm actually, because it does have some comedic elements in it, I'm actually interested. I think maybe more interested in you than you to see The Materialists because it's like, okay, she's thrown in some comedy, still the themes of like, what do I want in life? Whatever. So I don't know. I think I'm curious to see, and if anybody can do it, I feel like she can do it, not go the whole predictable Hollywood blockbuster route.
I hope so.
And make something a little bit more nuanced. I would trust her to do that.
I hope this is not hey, I got a lot of acclaim from the first film. Now I'm getting thrown a big budget and a big chance to work with big stars and just make a bigger movie. I hope that's not it. I hope. So I have faith that, and down deep that this is going to be a really good, well-made film. But but I'm trying to get my expectations up too high either.
Sure, understand.
Okay, so those are the two trailers I wanted to share. The Luckiest Man in America come out April 4th. Materialist, I'm trying to remember when that is scheduled to release. I had that in my notes a second ago. If you give me just a second, I will let you know exactly when it is coming out.
Coming out this year?
It is this year. It's a 2025 film, June 13th.
So this
coming out in the middle of summer, which is interesting. Doing a little counter programming with, I guess, all the
could be
the big blockbuster movies. Pedro Pascal is going to be competing against himself by early July, assuming this movie stays in the theaters up until the first week of
So
July.
it could be a Materialist versus Fantastic Four.
That's right. Which one will win the box office?
I have a guess.
I have a guess too. My prediction.
Regardless of how good either film is, I have a guess which one's going to make more money.
Yeah. But it is funny that film is coming out right in the middle of the summer. It's interesting. Okay. All right. Well, Chris, it is now over to you. That we have reached the point in the show where we like to look to you to give us a recommendation of something, a film that you think we ought to check out. And what do you have for us today?
So I'm going to recommend a film from 2023 called Molly and Max in the Future. I had not heard of this film until I saw it pop up on Letterboxd. I think somebody was extolling the virtues of it. And I'm like, I've one of the best films they'd seen this past year when it popped up on Amazon Prime. That is where I watched it. It's also available on Hoopla. The description, really quick description in Letterboxd, is just a man and a woman find their orbits repeatedly colliding over the course of 12 years, 4 planets, 3 dimensions, and 1 space cult. So as you can tell from that description, it's a sci-fi comedy, kind of a romance. I wasn't familiar with the 2 stars, Aristotle Athari. Apparently he spent some time on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And then Zosia Mamet was the plays Molly. Imagine if I was to hear or think like what the pitch would have been for this film to get it made. Imagine Before Sunrise with a green screen and having sci-fi overtones. That's kind of what this film is. It is a lot of conversations and talking, but the chemistry between those 2 leads, Molly and Max, is really awesome. It is funny. But it is basically them acting in front of a green screen with different planet sci-fi stuff going on around them and like costumes and stuff. But they don't try to make it overly realistic. I mean, they don't acknowledge the fact they're on a green screen stage. But it's like, and in the first couple of minutes when I was watching, I was like, yeah, this is funny, but like they're just standing in front of a green screen. But it's like they kind of winkingly acknowledge that and like the way the film progresses. And I was surprised at how much I ended up liking it because you hear that pitch and you're like, yeah, that sounds like that would get boring after about 10 minutes or 15 minutes. You would think that would make a better short film than a better feature, but it was really good. Now it does help. It's 93 minutes. So it falls
I was
into that.
actually going to comment because I've looked it up on IMDb while you were describing it. I'm like, what is it about our show today where we're focused on movies that are in the 90-minute range? It was both our original film review of
Black Bag.
Black Bag was an hour 33, I think, almost on the spot.
Yeah.
The luckiest man in America is clocking in an hour and a half. And so is this film. So yeah, we're kind of finding a sweet spot for this episode. Anyway, yeah, so that helps the film you're saying.
I feel like it does. It doesn't overstay its welcome. And it's, I think it would, it's too late now because we're in March, but would have made a good Valentine's movie because it's something that's just light. It's not overly heavy. There's some, funny jokes and stuff in it, but it's just kind of an uplifting film at the end of it. So,
Okay.
yeah, Molly and Max in the Future. You can watch it on Amazon Prime or on Hoopla, which is that library service you can get. So
I got my
recommend it.
library card renewed last week, Chris.
There you go.
So I got signed up on Hoopla. So I am in the Hoopla world and enjoying that so far. And but I was not aware of this film, so this is a new one on my list. So.
And actually, I'll just add to that. Apparently, the film was directed by Michael Litwack, which I'm not aware had never heard of him before. He's apparently a Brooklyn-based filmmaker, and he's done a lot of cartoon work. He was raised in Los Angeles but lives in Brooklyn. I'm curious to see, because I think he's done short films prior to this. I think this was his first feature. I'm curious to see what he does next, because I posted something about this on Blue Sky, and somebody like within a couple of hours was like, "Oh yeah, I saw that. Couldn't believe how much I liked it." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's one of those things you're like, I'll give it a shot," and then you watch it and you're like, "Oh, that's pretty good." So I'm curious to see if he can get some kind of groundswell, hopefully, to make another film.
All right, that's great. Very, very good. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. I'll have to check that out for sure. And I think that is going to wrap us up for today, Chris. So we had our review of Black Bag, both very positive on Black Bag, enjoyed it quite a bit. And then we had our trailers for the Materialist, not the Materialist, sorry, Materialist.
Damn right.
I keep wanting to say the Materialist, but it's just Materialist, as well as The Luckiest Man in America. Our joyous news that Acme versus Coyote, or Coyote versus Acme.
One of the two.
Yeah,
something
it's one
like
of those.
that.
It looks like it will be getting an actual release at some point soon, thanks to Catch Up Entertainment, which I think is great. I love that
awesome.
name. And then your recommendation as well. So we got a full show. Chris, if anybody has any feedback for us, thoughts, questions, ideas, suggestions, criticisms, even easy on the criticisms, but still, if you got them, that's fine. We'd like to hear them. How can they contact us?
Send an email to info@footcandle.org. You can follow us on various social medias, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky. We're at Foot Candle Film or Foot Candle Film Society. One of those will usually get you around to us. Al and I are also on Letterboxd, where we try to track what we're seeing and leave quick takes. Do us a favor, if you like the show, consider giving us a star rating, write a review, share with friends on whatever service you receive your favorite podcast on, because it'll help us reach new listeners. We would always appreciate that. Last but not least, I'll mention the 2025 Foot Candle Film Festival, which Alan has referenced. September 19th through the 28th. So if you're going to be in Western North Carolina during that time frame, or you want to travel to Western North Carolina during that time frame, we'd love to have you.
All right. Well, that'll do it for today. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.